Hey everybody! Are you looking to create more stable ankles and better base of support from the ground up? Then I want to talk to you about something today called doming. If you are joining us as part of the free 4-week Ankles on Point challenge, welcome to week number 1. As I mentioned, today we're going to be covering a topic called doming, which is basically how you can use the floor to create a more stable base, to build some stability through the ankles, which then can carry all the way up through the hips and the trunk. So doming is essentially creating that nice stable base and good contact with the floor by activating the proper muscles that support the arch. So when I'm in a standing position, I want to think about my weight being centered over what we call the tripod of the foot. Now the tripod of the foot is if we are looking at this point here, so the bone under like the first toe, fifth toe, bone under the fifth toe, and then the center of the heel. So again, if my tripod is under the first toe, the fifth toe, and then the center of my heel. And I want those 3 points to stay in contact with the ground as I am moving through the different positions. Now, there's muscles that run kind of from the calf down through the arch of the foot. Those are called our extrinsic ankle muscles, foot muscles, and then we also have muscles that are smaller and end the inside of the foot, and those are called our intrinsic foot muscles. Together, these things help create a nice stable arch through our foot, and we want to make sure that we're working those muscles effectively. So when I'm standing, I'm going to think about standing over that tripod of my foot, and then what you're going to try to do is lift up on that arch of the foot. So in order to do that, if you kind of watch me from the side here, what I'm going to imagine is pressing kind of the ball of my foot, so under those first 2 points, pushing them down into the floor to lift my arch up. It should almost feel as if you're trying to bring this knuckle closer to your heel, so just scrunching the center of that foot up. But something really important here, when I do that and I lift that arch, I'm not rolling to the outside of my foot, right? So I just want to lift it up. Toes should stay flat on the ground, no crunching and curling, nice and flush to the ground, and I'm just pulling up on that arch. Now, if I do this in standing, it's going to be a little bit more challenging because I'm against my whole body weight, but you could also do this sitting on the ground or sitting in a chair if you're having a hard time feeling that activation without changing your foot position too much. So again, just to recap, my weight is staying centered over the tripod of my foot. I'm pushing kind of under the metatarsal heads. I'm pushing down into the floor to scrunch the center of my foot up, but my toes are staying nice and flat with the ground, and I'm not rolling to the outside of the foot. I'm staying centered over that tripod. Now, this is a really important technique that you want to use with a lot of your dance techniques. So if we look, for instance, at just a first position, when I go into first position, I should be able to maintain that arch of my foot. So I want to make sure I pull up a little bit into that dome. Now, side note, this might be a conversation for another video, but if we are forcing our turnout from the wrong muscles and getting it from our lower legs and feet and knees, and not getting good activation up at our hip joint, it's going to make it very challenging for me to do this doming properly because I'm using the ground, my arch is kind of rolling inward, and now I can't get good muscle activation to lift it up. So I want to make sure that I'm truly getting the turnout from my hips and that I'm not forcing from the floor. And once you get into that turned out position, then you should be able to maintain that dome a little bit easier. As we move into a demi-plie, I should be able to maintain that dome of my foot. So I don't want to see you go down into demi-plie and you lose it and the arches roll forward, because when my arch flattens, look what happens to my knee. My knee also falls inward, and that means that so does my hip. So I'm not getting good turnout activation if I'm not getting good foot activation. Our turnout muscles and our foot muscles are very intertwined. However, If I go into that non-forced turned out position, so I'm using my turnout muscles already, I pull up on the arches of my feet, and then I go into my demi-plie. My knee should track over the center of my foot. Now I've got good alignment all the way from the ground up. Arches are lifted, knees are over the middle of the foot, and turnout muscles are nice and active, and you should feel them be active in that position. We can also use our doming when we go into a releve position. So as I go up into my releve, if I dome first and then raise up, it's gonna help me keep my weight centered over the middle of my foot. As we go into our releve, we want to think about the weight staying centered over like second and third toe, so the center line of the foot, versus coming up and the arches falling down and all my weight is over on that first metatarsal, or vice versa, if I'm too arched and like getting the doming by rolling to the outsides of my feet, now I'm going to be in a sickled position where I'm on the outsides of my feet. So we should be able to find that dome position to help pull us right to the midline of our foot. And now every time you do your releve, if you think of that little dome first, it should just keep you in better alignment. So little tips and tricks that you can do to incorporate into your bar work that you're already doing. I promise you it will make bar work feel a lot more challenging. You'll never realize how difficult a demi-plie was until you're really focused on some of these little muscle groups, but it's a great way to start building some strength and support right now. Now again, if you are part of our 4-week Ankles on Point challenge, this week the exercise program is going to be very much based on balance and utilizing this doming position. So make sure with all the exercises that you do that you are being very mindful of where your weight is in your foot and that you're keeping that arch lifted up.